Hey everyone, welcome to the Trendcrusher podcast. I'm Peter K. On this episode, I'm joined by Brady from Conjurer, all the way from the UK. They have a kick-ass album out this week, Unself. I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to know more about the album. But before I get into that, I'd like to play a track from another UK act, Mastiff. They have a new EP out for All the Dead Dreams. Here's the track from it, Decimated Graves. And that was Decimated Graves by Mastiff of their latest EP for All the Dead Dreams. The band are going to be on tour across Europe with Raging Speedhorn. Do check out their social media for more details. If you're interested in knowing more about Mastiff, I did a chat with their frontman Jim last year. Gonna leave a link in the show notes as well. Now on to this week's episode. Here's my chat with Brady from Conjurer. Hi Brady, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it is great to be here. How are you doing?
Good, good. I mean, it's a Monday, and I guess it's fun to kind of start the day. And I actually started off my day listening to your upcoming album, Unself. So, yeah, lots of questions around that. But how things at your end? I mean, it's a month ahead of the third album release, Unself.
Yeah, it's good. It's been nice. We've done a lot of press and interviews for this record, and um it's the most I've ever talked about an album before release with people. And I actually feel like it has been really nice to kind of get some other people's perspective and really obviously the you know, the press as a group term are going to engage with your music differently to the average person that gives it a listen. But so far, the feedback that we've had has been so overwhelmingly positive, and kind of the thing that I've been so worried is not the word, but some context. Our approach with every album before this has been to make an album that the four of us like, put it out into the world, and see what happens. You know, if people like it, wonderful. If they don't like it, whatever. You know, we made it for us, and that's that. This record is so much more emotional and vulnerable and intimate that for the first time I'm actually like, no, it means a lot to me that people kind of give this the time and can connect to it and can get something more from it. So to long long story to get back to what we were talking about, but to have had that feedback so far that people seem to be connecting with it on an emotional level really means a lot. And it feels really validating for us to have kind of gone through this process and made this thing and put so much of ourselves into it. And people seem to be really respectful of that. So yeah, I'm in a good place, but I am talking a lot about my music.
Okay, so the album comes at very interesting time, right? And like if you look at what's happening around the world, I mean, if you take the UK out of the equation, look at what's happening in the US, Southeast Asia. I mean, I know this will be out a little later, but you had like this entire protest happening across the border here in India from in Nepal. Uh, there's so much happening, right? And I think like for me, and I think for me, the entire protest in Nepal kind of resonated because I think a few weeks before I saw a Nepal punk band. And it was interesting that I was like, hey, this is the music of like resistance, protest, self expression. And I think that could also possibly be one of the reasons why the album is resonating with so many people, right? I think uh, while there's always something happening, I feel like we find ourselves in very strange times. And I'm just putting that as it's strange times, but yeah, I don't know what'll happen a month from when this album releases and also the interview releases.
Yeah, I totally understand. It does feel like it's the phrase that everyone used during COVID was unprecedented times. That was the buzzword in the UK at least. And it is quite funny because at no point did we sit down with this record and go, we want to talk about what is going on in the world right now. You know, there was no point where we were like, we want to sum up the experience of 2025 in a record and put it out there as a statement and tell people, you know, this is what it was like to live through these times. However, there are a lot of specific social issues in particular, and just kind of snapshots of our viewpoint on the world on this record, and certain things like the persecution of trans people, like the um, overwhelming uh, power of billionaires, like the lack of access to housing. All of these things are issues that have never made sense to us and have never been something that we could fathom. And it just got to the point where we felt like we had to speak about them. The everything we have done as a band previously has been really like veiled in obtuse language or you know deep and intricate metaphors, and I love that about our lyrics. It feels like we are trying to create something beautiful and meaningful with the specific words that we use. But on this album it was like, well, if we're going to talk about things that are quote unquote more real, or at least more external and not just how we feel inside, then we need to be a little bit more direct. And I think that is something that has really shaped the approach of this album, kind of both lyrically and musically. I think it is more direct than ever. The songs are a little bit shorter. We tried to cut anything that didn't feel essential and vital to what we were doing. So yeah, I think that the political climate and or the kind of social climate of the world is reflected a little more in this record than ever before. But I think all of that comes from our kind of personal frustrations and this worldwide lack of empathy that is shown by people towards whatever is going on. Like, that seems to be the unifying factor. You point to any negative or any kind of situation that is happening across the world, and there will be a subsector of people that are just unwilling to recognize someone's struggle or someone's pain or someone's personhood. That lack of empathy is something that is absolutely mind blowing to me. And yeah, I think that has directly informed some of the stuff we spoke about on the record.
Okay, couple of things. I mean, one of the quotes actually from your PR, right, where it actually says that you all lived in the moment and embraced everything that came your way. Uh, Tell me, like, at which point did you all kind of realize this is the kind of record that you all wanted to make? Like, was it a riff? Was it like a certain kind of turning point or a series of them, which now we're kind of all going to hear as Unself? Was there,
Mm.
if you could just go back
Yeah,
and see what it was like?
I think that really a huge turning point in what this album became was kind of Danny, the other vocalist guitarist's experience over the last couple of years, getting their autism diagnosis, getting coming out as non-binary, and really going through this process of self-actualization. And for them, it was looking back on all of these things in their life that maybe hadn't made much sense, and they hadn't been able to identify why they had felt like so much of an outsider in a lot of situations, and getting that agency to be like, oh shit, like this makes a lot of sense now. The I was not maybe built to succeed. I'm not set up to succeed in who I naturally am in this world, and that perspective really shaped a lot of the stuff that this album became. Danny came to us and was like, "Hey, I have been looking at all of these topics and kind of through the filter of their neurodivergence and how all of these different things have contributed to this idea of not feeling at home in the world, like that, the song that kind of runs through the spine of the album, "This World Is Not My Home." It's a kind of centuries old gospel song that originally, the meaning of that being, "This world is not my home because I'm going to heaven and that is going to be great." So, I don't identify with being alive here. Whereas for Danny and for us on this record, it is, "This world is not my home because what the fuck? Like, what is going on? Nothing about this feels like I should be here." Um, so really the idea of unself and to kind of remove oneself and to um remove the ego of oneself and to not make this insular, to make this an outward facing record is something that Danny came to us with pretty early on, like before we were working on music. We had some ideas for songs. We'd discussed a little bit the kind of stuff we wanted to talk about, but that idea was something that came to them really early on and kind of began to shape the record before we knew what it was going to be. But I will also say for this album, this is the first time we went into the studio and didn't have everything mapped out. Normally, we are finish all of the instrumentals 100%, get them note perfect, have them fully tabbed up, and then go into the studio and just record those songs exactly as they're written. And that's like quite a rigid process, and we didn't want to do that on this album. So we spent a full month in the studio. We had the majority of the material written, but so much was up in the air. A lot of ideas we developed in the studio. We wanted to get Joe, the producer's opinion, and really kind of craft this together and have that kind of emotional connection and the kind of community feel about the record that we'd never done before. So yeah, a lot of this, it stemmed from this initial seed of an idea from Danny, and then we just developed it together as a group, and we'd go into the studio, track parts all day, and then go back to the Airbnb and sit down and work on lyrics and talk about ideas and do that until well into the night, and then wake up and do the same thing the next day. So it was an intense creative process, but uh yeah, hopefully that is reflected in the final piece.
So, I must add, right, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but that initial track, and I think since you kind of talked about it, we can dive a bit more, is the one that kind of unsettled me because didn't expect to be listening to like a gospel track. And I
Yeah.
don't know, because I did spend some of my youth religious. I
Mhm.
remember the song called Going Home or Coming Home. I can't remember the
Same
exact thing.
concept.
And that's the
Yeah.
exact same thing. And I was like, oh shit, like didn't expect that. But I love the play that you'll kind of have on it and the way it just kind of hits you, right? Um,
Yeah.
so since we've talked a bit about the album, I'd like to play a track from it right now. What track would you recommend for someone who's never heard Conjurer?
Someone who's never heard us, um, it's always tricky because as a band, I think we cover a lot of ground musically. So there are tracks on there if you like hardcore and if you like doom or whatever. But the track that I think really gives you the best impression of what we're about would be All Apart. So it's track two. It's the first kind of full song on the record, and it really delves into a lot of Danny's specific experience with going to school as a child and being in this scenario where on the surface you are told, be yourself and be who you are and express your individuality, and then for a neurodivergent child whose natural self doesn't always fit into those scenarios, you're then told off and you're in trouble for naturally being who you are. So it's a lot about that juxtaposition of trying to fit in as a child through those formative years and trying to become a person in a societal setup that is not designed to allow you to actually become yourself. Which lyrically I love. It was, pretty much all Danny on this one, and musically it does a little bit of everything. Kind of takes from all aspects of the band. We tend to do one song like that on every record, and yeah, so happy with how this one came out.
Awesome. So here's All Apart. And that was all a part of the new Conjurer album, Unself, and I've got Brady from the band with me. Now, another thing I was very curious, right, is the entire process, because you kind of talked about, you know, working in the studio with it, and how difficult or easy was it to kind of make that adjustment? And is that something you're looking at in upcoming albums?
Yeah, it's funny because we were a little bit trepidatious going into the situation because we've always been so adamant that us being in a room and jamming and trying to come up with ideas doesn't work. Like we need to be on our own and have that space and really craft an idea and get it 60% of the way there before bringing it to the rest of the band, purely based on some really early rehearsals, trying to jam out ideas and trying to, and just not getting anywhere. So we were like, cool, that's not for us. On with this and with the material and the way that kind of we were going with the writing and trying to be a little bit less traditional with song structures or techniques or approaches. It was really important for us to actually demo these songs and then to get in a room as soon as possible and play them together. And I think the last record, there were songs that we had never played in a room before we had recorded them. So when we then got to playing live, it was a really alien experience. They didn't feel like our songs to some extent. So we had two full pre-production weeks with Joe Clayton, who engineered and co-produced the record up in Manchester in the studio that we ended up recording in. And in our mind, we were like, we'll take a couple of the song skeletons that we have and we'll refine them, and we'll make a little bit of progress. And on that first week, we got through 6 songs and we were blown away. Like everything about being in the space together felt easier. All of the arguments that we would have over ideas just kind of melted away. And by the end of the recording process, we were just agreeing on things, which is not always the way that our band functions. A big part of the kind of history of making these songs is the conflict and the arguing over one single note in a riff, and you'll be arguing over it like it is going to completely change the trajectory of the band, and it is a note that no one will ever notice. Like that, getting that into the minutiae of the record has been just a staple of what we do. And by the end of the studio here, people were like, yeah, whichever, I'm easy. And not because of not caring, but just feeling like we didn't have to fight to stamp our individuality on this record. All of the ideas were good. Everything that was in the mix was exciting and creative, and the kind of that tension between the members kind of dissipated. So yeah, I think as a process we were ready for this to not work, but we were so keen to try something new, and I think it made everything feel better and more exciting. Like Danny turned to me halfway through and was like, I'm not sure I'm okay with this. And I was like, what? And they were like, I don't feel bad in like I feel like I should feel stressed or anxious or negative or anything, and I just feel good throughout this process. I was like, yeah, that is how it should be.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of people can relate to what you're saying, right? Because it is all about, that stress, that friction that sometimes causes it. But, for a lot of people, you don't really need to. So I think everyone's kind of creative process is very different.
There's definitely those friction points, but it was just the idea that one, we've done this a few times now. We actually do know what we're doing, and two, we're more aligned than we've ever been before. So it just felt good, and it felt like people on the same page working towards the same goal. Like it was such a wonderful experience to make this record, and I feel like that energy somehow translates to what you hear in the final thing. Like I don't look back on this record and see the mistakes or the arguments I lost or the things I wish we had more time to do. I can just sit back and listen to it and go, this is the record that it is, and just enjoy it for what it is, which is the first time this has happened for me. Like I love it. I would love every piece of music we do for the rest of my life to feel like this.
Awesome. So one of the segments I do is called "What are you currently listening to?" So
Okay.
I think it's self-explanatory. What are you currently listening to? Metal, non-metal? Go ahead.
Um, Something about this band that I love is the fact that we all have very diverse music tastes and rarely agree on what to listen to. But for the most part, I'm not a big metal consumer. I try to listen to all the kind of new releases within the genre, anything that is interesting or people are talking about, for the most part, because I want to understand. I want to get why X band is blowing up. Not because I want to emulate it, but because that as a kind of a lifetime music nerd, that is the stuff that is interesting. It's trying to analyze what is that je ne sais quoi that bands have. So I try and keep up with recent releases. I know yesterday, very specifically, I listened to three albums on a drive that we had, which were the new Biffy Clyro album, Fatigue, that came out on Friday, which on one listen I love. Like I love that band. I think they're one of the UK's strongest rock bands and best songwriters of all time. Like they're really up there. The new Koji Radical album, who's a grime artist from the UK, who a friend of mine described as the UK's answer to Kendrick Lamar, which I think is high fucking praise. But I really like his last record, and I need to give this one some more time. And then the new Cardi B album, which was really quite disappointing. I've been much to the chagrin of most people I know, a really big defender of Cardi B's first record, Invasion of Privacy, which I think for a rapper that was seen as a bit of a joke by most people, I think that record is great, and she continues to act like an asshole and really try and discredit my support of her. And I was really underwhelmed with this new album. It feels like stale and overlong and just recycling the same shit she's been doing for a while. So yeah, it's been a mixed bag of new listening, but I try and stay up to date and try and stay aware of what is happening in the scene. Like I feel like you see so many musicians that are like, oh, I just don't even listen to metal anymore, and I'm like, no, like even if it's not for me, like it's almost homework at this point, trying to keep up with what is going on. So yeah, that's where I'm currently at. What about you? What are you listening to?
Okay, that's the first time anyone asked me that. So let me actually pull up, because what I do is, because I get all the promos, I
Hmm.
ended up loading them on my phone, uh, and I end up listening to them. So yeah, I
I
actually
just have
went,
to pull up my Tidal history to have a look at what I was listening to, so don't
yeah.
worry.
So I had to go back to At the Gates. I had actually got one of their albums at War with Reality. So rest in peace
Bad.
to him.
Absolutely.
Thomas, trying to look. There's a new grindcore act called Barren Path. So I'm checking out their album. Uh,
Oh.
they're a mix bag.
Mhm.
Revocation. So their album's out this week. So New Gods, New Master. So I did an interview with David from the band. So I had to check out that
Amazing.
album. Um, Not sure if you're familiar with Still in Love. They're a UK act.
Yeah, I know still. I feel like Noah either toured with them or something. But yeah, I know those
Yeah,
guys. They got a new record coming out.
yeah. So I've been listening to that. Of course, Unself, and trying to see what else that was interesting that I picked up. Um yes, it's typically like whatever's releasing, I'll just add it to my phone, listen to it on my way back and forth to work.
Love
But
that.
but so here's a question that I asked Connor a couple of years ago. I happened to speak to Joe also, I think earlier this year or last year. So I think you know where I'm going to go with next is I am a fan, I'm saying I am, of Curse These Metal Hands. So
Hmm.
what can you tell us? Because the last time I believe, and don't quote me on this, but Joe said that you'll at least would be playing live and you'll had started jamming a bit and you'll had written some music and that ended up being again a show that y'all played at Arctangent. So that was
Yeah.
cool. Uh, but what can you share for fans like me who are still holding out?
Yeah, I mean, like we talk about this all the time because it's like it's such a fun thing that we love doing, and just like even just getting to hang out with our friends in Pine, like it's something that is so special to us. We have a new song that I think is great, and I think at least the drums are recorded for it already. Like we are in process. But between Pine doing their new record and us touring a lot and working on this, it has just become one of those things that even I moved further away from Manchester as well. So I live in South London now. So it is literally spanning the breadth of the country to get together to work on this. I would love to finish that song and get it out next year, maybe do an EP. I don't know what the deal is, but for us, the focus has been getting this album over the line and out and kind of planning for touring for next year. But I know we will have the time and the space to come back to Kirsty's Metal Hands, and it's something that we all love and all are still passionate about and all think is very silly. So yeah, it will happen again. I am loath to put timelines on anything now because life gets in the way, but also life finds a way. So I'm confident we will do more with it. But if it's next year, great. If it's the year after, also fine.
Awesome. So definitely keeping my eye out on that. And yeah, it's always cool to talk to you guys and just kind of see where you all have kind of made progress or what's happening. But who knows? Maybe if you'll play Arctangent next year, I'll just show up again.
That would be the one. Have you been to Art Tangent previously?
No, no. But a friend did, and he told me that that's something I should definitely be checking out because it's an experience.
Honestly, it is unlike any other festival experience I've ever had. Like the way what a lot of people don't talk about with Art Tangent. You go as a as someone that buys a ticket and you have a wonderful time and it's great. The way they treat the bands behind the scenes is so good. Like from offering you money that is appropriate, from giving bands billing based on what they feel they deserve and not just who has the agent with the most juice. Like the fact that they're James from Arctangent and Gavin from Damnation Festival have a podcast where they are really open about all of the behind the scenes stuff. Like everything about the way this festival conducts itself is focused on the art and the music and creativity and fostering that community. I cannot say enough good things about Arctangent Festival. And yeah, you go as someone that a punter would be the word, and you are surrounded by brilliant music and good food, and for a festival, reasonably priced drinks. It is an absolutely unparalleled experience. Other than it does quite often rain pretty aggressively. So as long as you're happy to deal with that, I could not plug Arctangent any harder.
Awesome. You have me sold if my friend already hadn't. But yeah, talking about Pine, you guys are going to be on tour together, and I believe you're doing some dates also with Death Goals. Not sure if the exact, I couldn't find out, but I think this is the UK dates you're doing to them. What are you looking forward to from your shows coming up?
I think it's funny, we haven't done like a headline tour in 3 years. So for us, getting to curate an event is something that is so special. Like knowing that all the bands on the lineup are bands that we want to be there, that are artists that we support, that I would love to be known as a band that even if you've never heard of the support bands, you can rock up and know you're going to have an interesting or positive experience. So Death Goals, band I've never seen live, but really love their kind of aesthetic and their politics and their music. Their new EP is absolutely crushing. Pine have been they're kind of our oldest friends in music. Obviously, we have the collaboration, but they took us out on our first ever European tour, showed us how to tour and how to get out there and play shows. So yeah, it feels a little bit full circle for us having them both join us and Pine supporting us on what is one of my favorite albums, certainly my favorite post rock album of all time. From Low Beams of Hope, that record is stunning, and this will be kind of one of their first full tours off the back of that album. So yeah, it's a real privilege to get to share the stage with people that we love and respect so much, and bands that are so inspiring and or exciting. Like I cannot wait to get out on the road and play these shows.
Great. And before I let you go, I know you'll have some tour dates, but anything else planned early next year? Anything that people should keep an eye out for?
We are working on more touring throughout all of next year. We want to come back to the US. We're trying to come back to Australia. We are really focused on getting out there as much as possible and really getting to travel and meet people and play shows across the world is the greatest privilege of being in a band. Like it's so much of everything about how my life is right now and all of the positivity I owe to being in this band and going out there and meeting people. So that is our focus. The second this record comes out, I want to play a show in every front room in the world. I just want to get out there and do it. So, yeah, I hope that people connect with the record and then have a chance to come out and see it live and be a part of that experience because that's where we're at. That's what we're trying to do. We're not making any money, so we are trying to have positive experiences and to kind of share our love of this music with people. So touring as much as possible, that's the goal.
Hey, and I hope you get to do that and much more this year and next year too. But for everyone who's still tuned in and listening to this episode, any final words?
Um, Thank you for listening. If you are into what this sounds like so far, and I mean, the record will be out. So if you want to go pick up a physical copy, that really helps us out. If you want to come to a show, that's great. If you just want to share the music with someone, that is wonderful. But like, I really implore you, like, all bands are fucking struggling right now. Like, I am able to be in a position where I can have really positive interviews and chat about our music, but like it is tough out there, and no one really wants to talk about it to the extent that's real. But if you are going to a show, go buy a t-shirt, go say something nice to a band member because everyone is putting their money where their mouth is and losing money and struggling and all just doing that to bring you their art and to share that with you. So I feel like we all as music lovers have an obligation to try and support bands out there. So yeah, bit of a weird dark tone at the end there, but yeah, thank you for taking the time to listen and for you, Peter, to chat. It is very much appreciated, and I cannot thank you enough for taking an interest in my band.
Likewise, man. Really appreciate you taking time out and wish you all the best.
Hell yeah.
And that was Brady from Conjurer. Really enjoyed my chat with him and also finding out more about Unself. If you enjoyed the track that I played, All Apart, do check out the rest of their album. And also, if you're in Europe, do check them out on tour. That's all I've got from this episode. See you all next week. Cheers.